Well, good afternoon. Before we get started, I'd like to share that earlier today I signed a proclamation that all government flags fly at half-staff in honor of Trooper Christopher Lambert, who lost his life in service of protecting the people of the state of Illinois on Saturday. I spoke with his wife, Hallie, on Sunday to express my deepest sympathy for her family and sincerest gratitude for his service. His family remains in our prayers. Well, thank you all for joining us today for this first full day of a new administration. We're not waiting any time to get started in state government to put our state back on track and to get back to basics. Serving the people transparently is critical, and standing with working families is what this has been all about. I'd like to thank a number of leaders, elected officials, and citizens who are standing here together and who have pushed for progress for so many years and who will be partners in the work to come. Representative Anna Muller and Senator Cristina Castro, whose work is helping women, especially women of color, get equal pay for equal work. Senator Kim Lightford and Representative Will Davis, who have been tireless advocates for working families throughout the state, and the working men and women who are joining us today, and the leaders who are fighting tirelessly for them. Yesterday, we celebrated a new chapter for Illinois, and today we're getting to work putting our values into practice. Most importantly, in all that we do, I believe that the taxpayers of Illinois deserve a government that is transparent and accessible. Good government starts with making the state accountable to its people and ensuring that every Illinoisan has access to the services that they need. That's why, as my first executive order as governor, I'm directing all state agencies to usher in a renewed era of transparency, a back-to-basics focus on serving the public, and a requirement that they ensure that they are in compliance with the law. I'm directing state agencies, boards, and commissions to immediately review their compliance with statutory mandates, come into compliance with those laws, including transparency laws. I'm further directing them to release all data that is required to be disclosed under state law, as well as a review of potential voluntary disclosures that would improve transparency and provide plans to address all audit findings of the past 4 years. By shining a light on how the state is and isn't living up to its responsibilities to our citizens, we can start making real improvements in the lives of families all across Illinois. Today, I'm also acting on a promise that I made to the people of Illinois. That is, it's time to put Springfield back on the side of working families. We have a lot of work ahead to realize our vision for a state government that stands with working families, from affordable health care and quality education to a $15 minimum wage. Today, my administration is taking the first steps to move our state forward to have workers' backs. That starts with equal pay for women, who continue to see salaries well below their male counterparts in every industry. Women of color bear the brunt of this disparity. Today, my executive order will ensure that state agencies do not ask female job candidates for their salary histories to prevent artificially low salaries for women from undermining their value as workers. I'm especially grateful for the work of Representative Anna Muller and Senator Cristina Castro. They have done amazing work on this issue. Additionally, I'm directing the Department of Labor to take a stronger approach to fighting wage theft and day labor exploitations. For 4 years, these cases have been ignored. Workers stay silent, fearing retribution for speaking out. We cannot ignore their claims against employers who wronged them. Our workers deserve fair treatment and fair pay for a hard day's work. As a result, from now on, the Department of Labor will do more to promptly refer appropriate wage theft and labor exploitation cases to Attorney General Kwame Raoul. This executive order will also restore project labor agreements in the state of Illinois. And as long as I'm governor, state agencies will engage in project labor agreements, because we know that that's how we rebuild Illinois, with quality, skilled workers. The right to organize, the ability to negotiate fair pay for hard work, the promise of strong workplace safety standards, workers deserve nothing less. In addition to these executive orders, in a few moments, I'll also sign my first piece of legislation as governor, Senate Bill 203. It protects workers' wages and promotes diversity in companies that have contracts with the state. It also ensures that our Department of Labor will engage in collective bargaining with local labor stakeholders to establish prevailing wage rates. This legislation also requires the Department of Labor to release reports on diversity of workers employed on public works projects and provides recommendations to increase diversity. The work of our state must reflect the people of our state, all of them. I'm grateful to Senator Kim Lightford and to Representative Will Davis for getting this legislation to my desk, and I'm very proud to sign it. Finally, the state will initiate a process to restore the appropriate salary steps to employees whose seniority advancements have been frozen. While we have a number of outstanding issues to discuss with state workers, my administration will continue to work towards solutions to manage taxpayer resources effectively and compensate state employees fairly. Make no mistake, there is a lot more that we need to do for working families throughout Illinois. Minimum wage, health care, college affordability, strong schools. And I'll be focusing on all of those issues every day of my administration. This is simply a first step of things that we need to do and what I said I would do, put Illinois back on the side of working families. This state is home to the greatest workforce in the world. When we stand up for our workers, we strengthen our entire economy and we attract new jobs. Let's keep fighting for them. I'll take your questions now after I sign these measures.
Do you want this mic on the desk?
No, we need it on the desk. Just put it. You guys have this one.
Yes.
It's as if these pens haven't been used before.
Here, yeah, are we good here, Tony, as far as lighting?
Governor, congratulations. You did equal year prevailing wage and private labor agreements, and they do increase government spending. How are you going to manage that, given the current state of finances in the state of Illinois?
Look, I believe in collective bargaining rights. I believe that we need to stand up for workers in the state. We're obviously going to be entering negotiations at some point in the near future to discuss wages going forward and all of the other issues. But it's very important for us to establish on day one that this is a very different kind of administration and that we're focusing on lifting up working families.
Retroactive, and how much will that cost to bring the step increases?
We're going to implement them day one, and then we'll be involved in negotiations and discussions with the state workers to make sure that we're living up to the promises that the state has made.
Step increases. It's going forward.
It's going forward, correct.
Two things. One, Governor, I can just imagine a number of people are going to say from the business community, you say you want to build the business and the economy of Illinois and create jobs, and the first thing you do is raise the cost of labor. Is there any provision in the $15 minimum wage proposal you're backing to not have it apply to maybe businesses with less than 50 employees, or are there any cutouts? People like the little pizzerias are saying, we can't afford that. We'd have to charge $30 for a pizza.
Well, let me be clear that the workers of Illinois deserve a raise, and that it is time for us to begin the process of raising the minimum wage. You know that the bills that have been passed prior have been multi-year functions of increases in the minimum wage. That is the high likelihood. That is how the minimum wage would be phased in as we push it and get it passed in the legislature. As you know, I've also talked about making sure that we're assisting small businesses to make it less damaging or less difficult on them as we make those increases, but everybody deserves this wage. We're not going to leave a worker out because they happen to work for a small business, but we do want to make it easier for small businesses all across the state to implement it. And so I've talked about some of the ways that we might do that. We're going to, of course, speak with the legislature, the representatives of those small businesses, and make sure that we're doing that in the right way.
Thanks, Governor. On the transparency issue and auditing, what's an example of how that might be put into action in a way that might resonate with folks outside?
Well, as you probably know, there are obligations of state government to report information, data, for example, as well as comply with certain laws that have been passed in prior years that were not followed by the prior administration. We want to make sure we know what all of those issues are and then make sure that we're implementing those. It's very important, for example, in human services for people to know all of the data around, let's say, people who have HIV who may not have been tested as they were required to be tested, and then what the impact of that is, and then making sure that everybody is getting tested if it's a requirement of the law. Those are things that will save money for the state going forward to make sure that we're doing as much prevention as we can or as much treatment early on as we can. Mary Ann.
A little bit about last night. Quite a party. Had a lot of fun.
You're sitting on the floor, so you may have had more fun than everybody knows.
Why, though, was that important? Talk about, did you pay for the entire party, and why was that sort of lavish spending important to you? And how much was it?
What was important, Mary Ann, was that we make sure to celebrate a new day for the state of Illinois. We have a new direction for Illinois. We simply wanted everybody to have a good time after the new administration had taken office. And, we're launching in today with standing up for working families and making sure we're doing what's right for them. Look, I think Amanda had a question.
So I'm going to double. I do want to know how much it costs. And also, as you're talking about transparency, can you address the issue of elected officials, including legislators, having second jobs, outside incomes? Is that something that your administration is going to take a look at, particularly in light of the criminal charges against Alderman Burke?
Yeah, so first of all, when you've got a citizen legislature and people have outside jobs, people do need to look at whether there are conflicts of interest and whether legislators should be allowed to vote on things that they have a conflict of interest around. I think that's something that each legislature needs to report properly on and abstain from voting on. So that's very important to me, and we're certainly going to be looking at ethics legislation going forward to make sure that people are held accountable for that. But as for now, as you know, we're beginning the process of making, putting ethics and transparency executive orders into effect, and then when the legislature comes back in, we'll be talking about new legislation.
Governor, can you address the box question?
In your speech yesterday, you mentioned that schools, hospitals, neighborhoods are legally accessible by weapons of war. The application of responsibility needs to end. Beyond licensing gun shops, I wondered what further action, specific action you're prepared to take in that realm.
Well, certainly we should be talking about, bump stocks, which of course have been talked about at the federal level, but we'll have to see the implementation, and then high-capacity magazines. Those are two examples, but here's a big one that we need to focus on, and that's prevention on the ground, interrupting violence. I talked about this throughout the campaign. There are organizations like Cure Violence and Violence Interrupters and others that really go onto the streets and talk to those young people who might be prone to violence or susceptible to others who are trying to draw them in, and offering them opportunities so that they can get off the street and lead productive lives. Those programs have been decimated across the state, and so we should be focusing on interrupting violence as much as possible, interdicting weapons that are coming across the border, and I'm certainly going to be talking to the governors of surrounding states and working on what I said during the campaign, which is to try to interrupt that flow on both sides of the border. So those are some examples, anyway, of making sure that we're dealing with the weapons of war that are coming onto the streets of our state.
Last question. Something I noticed yesterday when you took the oath of office, that you did not end it in the traditional way that many governors have, saying, "So help me God." Can you explain that?
So help me God.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, how did the Maroon 5 thing happen?
No, maybe.